الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم صبغة الله ومن أحسن من الله صبغة ونحن له عابدون قل أتحاجوننا في الله وهو ربنا وربكم ولنا أعمالنا ولكم أعمالكم ونحن له مخلصون صدق الله العظيم. Respected elders, dear brothers and sisters, regarding Ayat number 137 of Surat Baqarah, the rabat and connection going back to the previous Ayat, particularly the previous two Ayat, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded us believers and mu'mineen to make our position very clear as far as where our belief stands, what we believe in. The Jews and Christians, they have a particular system where they have associated particular colors with piety and righteousness, or with their religion, and this is more particular to the Christians than it is to the Jews or the Jewish tribes. In Christianity, there's a lot of emphasis laid on using water to purify yourself, and that water being a particular color, a color yellow. This is a very famous system in baptism where they baptize someone by putting them into colored water, the color coming from a particular type of plant. But this is a sign of somebody being baptized, somebody entering into their religion or into that particular sect of Christianity. And you can find this common in all of the sects of Christianity, this particular color system. This goes back to the system of cleansing and cleaning that was famous with the Hawariyin, or the disciples of Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam. The name that is given to the disciples, the word disciples, they take from the word Hawari or Hawariyin or Hawariyun. And Hawari is someone who was a dry cleaning. They used to do the dry cleaning business. They used to clean clothing. And they used to also dye clothing. They used to color clothing. Particularly the yellow color and the red color. Red is also a common color in there. Yellow is also a common color there. They translated the word Hawariyin to disciples, although the term itself means those that were having the dry cleaning business. And these were people in society that were generally more humble. They had a humble living. They did not have a lot of wealth. And Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam, when giving da'wah, these were the people that followed him, 12 disciples. And generally, these 12 disciples, they shared this business, or they had this type of business. They were hawariyin. And generally at that time, the dye or the color that was given to clothing was either yellow or red. That was a general dye. Otherwise, the clothing was left as white. So this color became associated with that religious group or that religious ideology as a color of piety. It should also be noted that that was not the term used for the Christian. There was actually another term, Nasara, and we'll come back to that. How they got the term Nasara. So they used to associate this color yellow or the color red with piety or somebody that had entered into the religion. Later on, this became a custom amongst them that this was something that a baptism was done. And it used to be done with kind of a cleansing at the time of infant child. That the child is given a bath or a bathing. And this was later on associated to Yahya alayhi salam. That is why they have the famous saying, John the Baptist, where the word John comes from Yahya. And Yahya alayhi salam was the son of Zakaria alayhi salam, and was also a cousin of Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam, and they were at the same time Anbiya and prophets. So a kind of particular types of plants was put into a tub of water to purify the water. And then a baby was given a bath in that water, cleansed and cleaned. And it used to be kind of a common custom at that time to have this type of cleansing of a particular plant used in water. Coming to later on in history, in our Muslim history, Islamic history, there came the time when mud or clay was used to cleanse a person. And later on, Muslims developed these different flowers and different plants and made soap. So now we have a system of soap where we utilize soap to cleanse ourselves. But at the time of Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam and at the time of Yahya alayhi salam, they didn't have soap. But they did have the system of plants from which the soap is made. At least a natural pure soap which purifies and cleanses the body. So they used to have those type of plants. They would put that plant into the water. Particular amount used to even change the color of the water to a yellowish or a yellow color. So the system of purity or the system of cleansing, which we consider tahara and cleanliness, that at that time then became associated with this yellow color. So it became a customary thing amongst the Christians to consider the yellow color as something pure, although it had very little standing even in their deen, in their religion. But this became a customary custom to consider the yellow color as a color of purity, as a color of cleanliness. And there were some other plants that would make the color of the water a little bit reddish, like the rose or rosemary type colors. And again, the color red again also being associated with the type of cleanliness or cleansing. And it used to be considered a normal thing in their religion, in Christianity, that if you wanted a symbol of purity, so it was always associated with somebody in their mind, going close to nature and going close to these colors, the yellow color or the red color. Later on in Christian traditions, this became a common trend, and different levels were given based on your color and based on your purity. And that ended up becoming into the field of becoming a monk. And from that, ranks were then associated in different ranks and different levels. You'll see some wearing white, some wearing red, some wearing yellow. Later on, a little bit of blue was associated with it. Some are wearing blue. So different garments, different colors, different positions, different status. From that, the ideas came of the bishop and the cardinals and the priests and so on and so forth. Different levels, dressed in a particular way, using a different color. The more higher ranks were associated with the colors of red and yellow and white. And again, lower ranks had different colors, black and blue and other colors. So the Christians came to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam and also came to the Sahaba radiallahu anhum and asked them, what is the color of your deen? Or what is the color of Allah? Na'udhu billah. In their mind, they used to consider that a sign of piety, that what is the color of Allah or the color that is used for your piety in your deen, in your religion. What is a symbol of piety? And what color is associated with the most pious people? As that was the rank system amongst the monks and the higher ranks, even within the Christians, the bishops and cardinals, and all the way up to the Pope. And you'll find it generally, the Pope, white or red or yellow. That's kind of like the general colors you'll even see the Pope wearing. Other colors also, but in general, these are the types of colors that you'll see the Pope dressed in general. So when they asked Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam this question about colors, even in the deen of Islam, what is a symbol of piety in Islam? Which colors are associated with it? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the answer in these ayat of Surat al-Baqarah. Ayat number 137, 138, 139. And also the previous ayat going back to the same discussion, going all the way back to ayat number 133 or 134. So in the previous ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made a few points very clear. Qulu, that you should say, Amanna billah, we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we believe in what was revealed to us, وَمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْنَا, what was revealed to us and what was revealed to Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, Ismail alayhi salam, Ishaq alayhi salam, Yaqub alayhi salam, and the other tribes, and what was revealed to Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam and Isa alayhi salam, and the many, many prophets that came after that, or the many prophets that came before and around that time. And once that belief is established, it's made clear, the belief system is clear. So that was the iman of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And if anyone holds on to that belief, فَإِنْ آمَنُوا بِمِثْلِ مَا آمَنْتُمْ, and if anyone believes in the way that you have believed, meaning the way that the Sahaba of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam have believed, فَقَدْ اهْتَدَوْا, so such a person is guided. That is what is iman, that is what is guidance, that is what is rank of piety and purity. So here in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, Sibghat Allah. That is the color of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you're asking about colors. That the real color is a symbol of iman and the symbol of piety. It has nothing to do with the physical colors that you might be associating. There's no one color better than another color in general. Coming to particulars, so the Anbiya alayhim as-salam in general, majority of the Anbiya alayhim as-salam wore simple clothing, which was generally white. There is some ahadith giving preference to the white color. But it's not that if somebody's not wearing white that they're not pious or piety is not, no, this is not. It's just showing you that in general, the color that is associated with piety in Islam has very little to do with actual colors. It has to do with real piety in Islam has to do with the level of a person's iman, and has to do with the level of a person's adherence to the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And again, the sunnah also has different levels. There were different types of sunnah. There were some sunnah that were the personal sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. How he dressed, how he ate, how he spent his day. Those kind of sunnah were related generally to that society, to that time. It didn't necessarily have, a lot of them did not necessarily have to do with particularly that lifestyle. There were certain preferences given to particular things, but other than that, in general, some of those sunnah were very limited to the society of that time. For example, riding a horse or riding a donkey or having a camel and riding that. And nowadays we have cars and aeroplanes and all this means of transportation. Somebody says, I want to practice that sunnah and go back to riding horses and donkeys and camels. So in a sense, that was sunnah, but that was because it was related to that time. Or you want to eat in utensils that were made of the material of that time. So these are sunnah that were related to the society of that time. Not that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam himself preferred those type of sunnah. There were other sunnah that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he practiced them, but he preferred them, even though he had other options. For example, the libas, the clothing, which is mentioned in the Quran in a few places, particularly the thobe. وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ, keep your thobe clean. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in general used to wear a white thobe. But that does not mean that it is limited to that. Even the word qamis is mentioned in the Quran in reference to Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. So the kind of the clothing of the Anbiya, the clothing of the prophets and messengers, and particularly the clothing of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, preference was given to the thobe, preference was given to the term that's also used in the Quran for other Anbiya alayhim as-salam, like the qamis. So the qamis and the thobe. And also this thobe was different than some of the thobe of that time. So it was not that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was limited to this clothing because of the clothing of that time. It was a general practice at that time that people used to have a very long thobe they used to drag on the ground depending on their status. The higher your status was in society, the longer your thobe would drag behind you. That was kind of the Arab culture. And it was a symbol of status. So somebody who had a very high status, chief of the tribe, so his thobe used to drag behind him. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he was also from a very prestigious family. But he prohibited this, allowing the thobe to drag behind you. And he prohibited it even for us believers. And make sure your clothing does not drag underneath your ankles. So it goes to show that, yes, this is not only sunnah because of the time, but it is a particular sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam to make sure that your thobe is not dragging underneath your ankles and not dragging behind you. And again, this also applies to the trousers and so on and so forth. So very, very particular in the clothing, the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And again, there is logical reasoning behind that also. A Muslim should always be, or a Muslim should always try to be in a state of tahara and cleanliness, particularly the clothing being clean. And if your thobe is dragging behind you or your clothing is dragging behind you, it can become najis, or it can fall into najasa and impurity. That is why it is sunnah. And not just your clothing, your thobe and your pants and so on. It should not drag behind you that it can become impure. And again, you can go into all the other details of the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and you can understand the reasoning behind them. So a person's piety, taqwa, fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, righteousness, iman, belief, all of these will be symbols of a person's qurb ila Allah. It is not necessarily a particular type of color in a dress. It can be a particular dress, the dress of the Anbiya alayhimus salam, the dress of the prophets and messengers. Generally, that is a preferred dress. But it's not that somebody not wearing that should not be or will not be considered as somebody righteous. Because that was kind of the system that the Christians used to have, the system of monks, rahbaniyin. That the monks used to detach themselves from the world completely. And they would put on or they would don a particular type of dress. And before they donned that dress, so they would go into a type of, they would bathe in a particular type of water, and then they would put on that dress as a means or a sign or a symbol that they've given up this world. And they used to live the rest of their life in seclusion or away from their desires. They still do that. These are monks. Qissisin and Ruhban, the different types of monks and priests that were amongst them. In Islam, as Muslims, there's only one time where we have a particular dress, and we must wear that dress only one time in our life, or in one particular occasion. And that is when a person is in a state of ihram, also known as muhrim, or a person who is in a state of ihram. So when you are in a state of ihram to either perform umrah or to perform hajj, you have a particular dress for ihram. That's it. And you must wear that dress, otherwise your umrah or your hajj will not be done. And you can read about the details of it in the books of fiqh. And it's a very simple dress. There's 2 white sheets, that's it, for a man. For a woman, it's a normal dress, as simple as she can wear. Preferably something that is not colored, preferably something black, and just very simple dress. Does not have any designs or any colors on it. And again, it's not limited to the dress only. A muhrim also has to stay away from perfumes, has to stay away from many, many other rules of being in the state of ihram. But even in the state of ihram, you're not allowed to stay in ihram for the rest of your life. It's a very particular amount of time, and then you must get out of ihram. In umrah, when you do tawaf and you do sa'i between Safa and Marwa, and you shave your head, so you get out of the state of ihram. Shaving of the head for men, obviously, not for women. You shave the head for a man, so he's out of ihram. A woman, she may cut the end tips of her hair or whatever the reason. Then there's a particular, you can read in the books of fiqh how they will get out of ihram. But generally, the maximum time is at the end of the umrah, tawaf, and sa'i between Safa and Marwa. In hajj, again, similar. You only have few days you can stay in ihram. That's it. depending on what type of Hajj you're doing, Hajj Tamattu or Hajj Qiran, whatever the type of Hajj you're doing, you will stay in Ihram for a particular 2 or 3 days. That's it. Once you have done Tawaf Ziyarah and you have done the your sacrifice of your animals, you're out of Ihram. You'll even change the clothing back to normal clothing. You'll go to Mina. You may spend the days in Mina, 11, 12, and 13. But you will not need to stay in Ihram after you have done your sacrifice of your animal, the Qurbani. So very particular limited times, hardly a day or a few days, that a person will stay in Ihram at maximum. As far as the Christian beliefs, so once somebody becomes a monk and they denounce the dunya, they denounce the world, and the person makes his intention to be a monk, so then for the rest of their life, they have to live in a state of being a monk. They cannot marry. They cannot indulge in different types of desires of the world. They have to seclude themselves. Even the food they eat, they have to grow it themselves. That's why you'll find a lot of monasteries where these monks live. They'll have their own farm because generally they're not allowed to go into mingling and go to shopping and do these kind. No. They have to live in that monastery. They have to live in their farm. They have to live in their land. They have to go into long, long hours of meditation. Meditation is very, very long they spend in meditation. That's their belief. That's what they believe. Every monk will have a group of people that will be with them, will take care of them. So either a group of monks or a few monks will get together. The rest of the people will be there as their khadimin, serving them, taking care of the farm, growing the food for them, taking care of them. And they have their own system. But they have to denounce the world for the rest of their life. Very difficult life they have to live. In Islam, we're not allowed to be monks. La rahbaniyata fil Islam. There's no becoming monk in Islam. It's not allowed. It's haram. So this is what this ayat is talking about. When it says the color of Allah, sibghat Allah. وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ مِنَ اللَّهِ صِبْغَةً. That this is the color of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is not literally a color, but it is talking about what is considered piety and righteousness. وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ مِنَ اللَّهِ صِبْغَةً. And what can be better than this color that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made, meaning this iman, this taqwa, what is true righteousness as far as Islam is concerned. وَنَحْنُ لَهُ عَابِدُونَ. And we are the real worshippers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not these monks that spend these hours and have denounced the dunya. This is not real piety. Real piety is that you live in the dunya because we're humans. We have to live in the world. These monks consider that as if that they're angels. Their ibadah is angelic. But if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted the ibadah of angels, so then why did He make us human? And why did He make us insan, humans, being better than angels? Because our ibadah is also, in a sense, can be better than that of the angels. The angels don't have desires. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created a system of desires inside us human beings. That part of our ibadah is fighting against these desires. It's not easy waking up for Fajr Salah. It's not easy praying 5 times a day. It's not easy fasting all day. It's not easy not looking at haram. It's not easy lowering your gaze when you see something haram. It's not easy closing your ears when you hear something haram. It's not easy avoiding haram. So half of piety, or more than half of piety, is associated with protecting and preventing yourself, stopping yourself from haram. وَالَّذِينَ يَجْتَنِبُونَ كَبَائِرَ الْإِثْمِ وَالْفَوَاحِشِ. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about the piety of the righteous people, He said there are those يَجْتَنِبُونَ كَبَائِرَ الْإِثْمِ وَالْفَوَاحِشِ. They are those who save themselves and protect themselves from the major sins and from all types of immodesty and immorality. This is real piety. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us understanding and give all of us the tawfiq to practice His deen. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغِ. Inshallah, we'll read some hadith, inshallah. Or a continuation of the same hadith that we've been going on for a few days now. نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: فضلت على الأنبياء بست، أعطيت جوامع الكلم، ونصرت بالرعب، وأحلت لي المغانم، وجعلت لي الأرض طهورا ومسجدا، وأرسلت إلى الخلق كافة، وختم بي النبيون، وكما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. رواه Muslim. The hadith of Sahih Muslim, Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, he narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, فضلت على الأنبياء بست. I have been given fadila and superiority of 6 things above the other Anbiya alayhim as-salam, above the other prophets and messengers. أعطيت جوامع الكلم. I have been given جوامع الكلم, very comprehensive words, where a few words are enough to explain encyclopedias of information. وَنُصِرْتُ بِالرُّعُبِ. I have been helped with ru'ub, in fear. We've gone over the details of this. وَحِلَّتْ لِيَ الْمَغَانِمِ. The spoils and booty of war have been made halal for me. The 4th superiority, وَجُعِلَتْ لِيَ الْأَرْضُ طَهُورًا وَمَسْجِدًا. And this earth has been made, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the whole earth for me tahuran, a place where I can purify myself, wa masjidan, and a masjid, a place of salah, I can do ibadah. What is unique to the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, what is unique to us believers, is that the whole world is a place of tahuran, a place where we can become pure. If we have water, we can use the water to become pure, with wudu, or with ghusl, whatever the case might be. But if we do not have water, we can do tayammum. And tayammum is a replacement for wudu and ghusl. If you do not find water, time of salah comes, and now you have to pray salah, but you're impure, you do not have wudu, or you need to do ghusl, you're in a state of major janaba, and there's no water to purify yourself, so what do? You do tayammum. And what is tayammum? Tayammum is very easy. You'll find the earth, which is everywhere on earth. So you'll find a place that can either accumulate dust or that has clay and dust on it. And you will tap your hands on it. You will tap at least 3 times, try to get some dust on your hands. Okay? And when you get the dust on your hands, it should not be too much. If it is too much, you will dust it off. Okay, you should not take the dust. No, you will dust it off, and you will wipe your face 1 time. Okay, you should not be in the desert and you pick up dust and you put it on your face. No. You just tap, get some dust in your hand, or if it is clay, you just get a little bit of some clay in your hand, dust off if it's too much, and wipe your face 1 time. Then what you will do is that then you will again tap the earth, maybe get some dust or some clay, and you will wipe your right hand up to your elbow and then come back 1 time. You'll take your hand and you will wipe your hand coming up to your elbow, and then you will switch like this and you will come back, kind of covering the whole hand where you would cover if you had water. You would do that 1 time. Right hand. And then again you would tap, get some dust or some clay or whatever it might be. If it's too much, dust it off, and then again do your left hand in a similar manner. So wipe the whole left hand up to the elbow, including the elbow, and then come back. Make sure that you get some dust in those areas. or a bit of the clay, whatever it might be. And your tayammum is done. That is the whole tayammum. Okay? That's it. If you don't find water, that is if you do not find water, so this is how you do tayammum. Wipe your face, wipe your right hand, wipe your left hand, finish. فَتَيَمَّمُوا صَعِيدًا طَيِّبًا فَامْسَحُوا بِوُجُوهِكُمْ وَأَيْدِيكُمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us very clearly in the Quran, if you're in a state of janaba, in a state of impurity, you do not find water. فَلَمْ تَجِدُوا مَاءً. You do not find water. The time of salah is there. The time of salah is going to expire. فَتَيَمَّمُوا صَعِيدًا طَيِّبًا. You find, then you will do tayammum with the pure earth. فَامْسَحُوا بِوُجُوهِكُمْ وَأَيْدِيكُمْ. Wipe your face and wipe your arms. Finish. Ayat of the Quran. Not in one place, in two places in the Quran. It's made very clear what is tayammum. Now you have to make a fresh tayammum for every salah. You made tayammum for dhuhr salah, you prayed your dhuhr salah. Time of asr salah comes, you still haven't found water or you don't have enough water to pray the asr salah. So again, you will do tayammum for fresh tayammum for asr salah. You cannot say, oh, I have not broken my tayammum from dhuhr, now I can pray my asr. No, no, no. That only applies if you have wudu. Okay, your tayammum is finished with the end of dhuhr salah. The same thing, your tayammum will finish at the end of asr salah. So you cannot repeat another salah with it. Okay? Another point is that this will apply anytime you don't have water, or you run out of water, or you don't have sufficient water for wudu. Like say you have a bottle of water that is for your survival. You don't have enough to make wudu with it. Either you make wudu or you survive. Or even if you make wudu, your wudu will be incomplete because it's not enough water. So make tayammum. Or there's a scenario where a person is sick, and the sickness is such that if they make wudu or they use water, the sickness will become worse. So they can do tayammum. And then there are many other rules and regulations you can read in the books of fiqh related to tayammum. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam made it clear for us that one fadila that has been given to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and this fadila is extended to the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, is that the whole earth, وَجُعِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ طَهُورًا وَمَسْجِدًا, that the whole world has been made a place of purity and a masjid. So first portion, purity. You can use any part of the world as a means of purity, provided you have found that place. There are different rulings as to particularly what kind of items can be used to make the tayammum from. Certain types of rocks or clay or any place where dust can accumulate. There are different opinions you can read in the books of fiqh, and you can go into those details. So that is the portion of the hadith. Inshallah, we'll go more in detail tomorrow. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give all of us a tawfiq to practice His deen. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ.